Hey all, welcome to Circle of Tone. That is how you start a video, and if you're new to the channel, I usually recreate famous guitarists' historical recordings on their albums. And that is a sneak peek of a video that's coming up in the next couple of days of me recreating the legendary Mick Mars. Even thrash dudes like myself, respect the crap out of the songmanship and the riff writing, the surprising depths. If you scratch the surface of some of these glam scenes, there's quite a lot of depth there, and I think Mick Mars is pretty deep. Speaking of deep, let's talk about this movie. It starts off with a bang, because they were banging straight up the gate. So gratuitous to start with. It wasn't even sexy. It wasn't even titillating. But straight away, tits and ass everywhere, and it wasn't really sexy. And it was kind of, I've said it before with movies like Loads of Chaos and with things like Airhead, it's really tough to portray metalheads without having that little bit of cringe. That bit of cringe was there. It's part of our culture now. For some reason, we don't want serious actors with real long hair playing parts. We want people with obvious wigs doing this and that. But straight away, straight out the gate, kind of lame, kind of gratuitous, and very dumb. Because the thing is, on the Loads of Chaos movie review that I did, I went into so much depth. I went on for almost half an hour talking about the parallels with gang violence and the black metal scene and all these little microcosms of the world versus this. And when it comes down to this movie, it was so basic that there isn't really much I can talk about. But that's really what we should be talking about, because that scene was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So what it wasn't like I said, the deep thing with Mick Mars, but the movie was the sex, drugs, and rock and roll aspect of it, the dirt. Let's get to the music aspect of it. That, by far, was the best aspect of the movie. The music was done brilliantly. Vince Neil's singing was completely off, because his singing, especially the early singing, was bad. We don't like Vince Neil because he's a brilliant singer, a classically trained singer. We like him because he had the attitude and the balls and the hips and the middle finger in the air. He embodies rock and roll, but he wasn't like a talented singer. But in this movie, he sounded like an amazing singer. Like everyone was getting their hair blown back by him. But at the time, I've listened to the early Mötley Crüe demos when I was doing research for my tone recreation video, and he was struggling. And now I know why they dropped pitch, because when they heard him struggling, hit the high notes. And he's doing it to himself, though. And that's what's metal about Vince Neil. He will try and do that. Go as high as he can, as loud as he can, as hard as he can. That's why we like him. It's nothing to do with him being able to sing like, an opera singer. So that kind of little pissed me off a little bit, because, he used to get the piss taken out of him. And in this movie, it was like a Golden God type of voice, Robert Plant type of a shit. But he wasn't that. So let's talk about the live thing. The characters looked a little bit goofy. If you're a director watching this, a future budding producer, when it comes to doing live performances and trying to recreate the old famous metal videos, don't go 4K high depth right up in people's faces where you can see the weave of someone's wig. That drags you out of it, and this is a big mistake. It looks visually stunning, but then you can see all of the cracks. I've mentioned this on the other movie review. So just pan out a little bit, put that Vaseline on the lens. You want to see it from the crowd. Can't see the makeup and the joins in the hair pieces, and the crowd can't see that. I think live depictions should involve the crowd more, and also crowd perspective more, as well as a few MTV shots. But fast, don't pan in and stick it, because it takes it out of you. And that is a thing the director did, which pissed me off. It's like, come on, dude, this looks clownish. But the gear, holy shit. We have a Facebook group. If you search Circle of Tone in Facebook, come and join our group. Share your music, share your mic techniques and all sorts of stuff. I started, before this movie came out, I started a thread talking about Mick Mars' guitar. His most famous guitar was his Les Paul, his 70s Les Paul Custom. And it had two eras to it. There was one where it had almost like a black and white diamond effect on the paint. And then shortly after, then it was just all black. So, and I was like, is it the same guitar, or is it a similar guitar that's painted a different way? And the rest of it, And surely enough, this movie's attention to detail was so close that they had the Les Paul with the diamond on it. Whoever did the music on that and the choreography did a really good job. And that's what I enjoyed mostly about the movie. I loved the backstory to them joining. I'm glad they spend more time on that than they usually do, because that is what I love. I love researching how bands actually made it. Behind the music. I'd rather behind the music and then it ends when it's signed, when they get signed. I love that aspect. So yeah, so the rehearsals and Mick Mars coming in and saving, basically, he's been carrying this band for 5 years, which was true. But still, you need something called sex appeal. And now I'm going to talk about Machine Gun Kelly. Now let's talk about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Tommy Lee, and being played by Machine Gun Kelly, who held his own. He was just as believable as the professional actors around him. Now, I'm not saying that's 10 out of 10, but I'm saying for a guy like him to come in with seasoned actors and to do as good as he did, spot on. And another thing, it's brilliant casting. I've done videos in the past of why rock is dead, why metal is dead, why progressive is dead, why gent is dead, and the rest of it. We're all in a bubble as musicians. We think that it's popping, but it's not. Outside, people's bedrooms with their Easy Drummer 2, nobody cares about modern metal. And I'll tell you why. It's because of Machine Gun Kelly. What does rap... If you don't know, Machine Gun Kelly is a famous rapper. So what does rap have that is so great musically versus rock and metal? It really doesn't have anything apart from rock stars. Machine Gun Kelly is a motherfucking rock star, right? He is the Mötley Crüe of rap because he gets around. There's a great channel called Digital Tour Bus, and if you see him on the road, you can see him telling stories about showing people around his tour bus and all the stories that come out of it. He is rock and roll. And that's what's missing in metal. I've said it before, it's becoming a meme, but now people in modern metal and rock look like me. And, showing, oh, here's my pedals, here's my settings, here's my blah. Oh, Jesus Christ. Machine Gun Kelly with fucking dick in everyone's faces, tattoos everywhere, foot on the monitor, lights everywhere. That's what's missing in rock and metal. It's fucking boring. So that's why it's dying. I mean, have you seen the metal and rock acts that are propping up these huge festivals? They're older than me. Grandfathers on stage. How is that going to get kids going, oh yeah, it's easier to pick up a microphone and rap than it is to spend 5 years toiling on the guitar, playing Kumbaya, Now let's talk about the acting. Like I said, trying to recreate metalheads is, I think, probably one of the hardest things to do in movies. I don't think it's been done yet. There's a handful of movies where metalheads were portrayed well. There's not many that I can think of, It's always like, hey bro, party on, dude, And there was a few moments in the movie where people were saying things like, yeah boy. And I don't think people said yeah boy back then, well, white people at least. So it's like, there's a few modern things that were popping in that were little hiccups, but it would have been yeah man, or bro, or whatever. But let's talk about the best actors in this movie by far. The kids. The young Nikki Sixx was so believable. Rage. Well, I won't spoil what happened, but goddamn, some strong stuff from the kids. And even though I'm not going to spoil what happened, but with Vince Neil's daughter being played by this little girl, who it was just heartbreaking, and poor Vince Neil. I'm sure that was tough for him to watch, but what great actors these kids were. I mean, they were young too. I think casting was bad generally in the movie. We're talking about most of the peripheral actors. And there's also a little bit of self-grandizing in the movie from Nikki Sixx and people like that, where they claim that they hate Kiss. I think they're still trying to convince themselves that they were more punk rock in the early days. It was kind of filtered down punk rock because they became metal really on the Shout at the Devil, where they became more hard-edged. But they were glam. They were more glam. I mean, glam had aspects of punk in it because of the makeup and the dyed hair and the outrageous outfits. They kind of blended a little bit with punk, but then, it's still watered down, and then Mötley Crüe watered it down a bit. So I think they're a bit delusional about the punk rock attitude that they had. They weren't exactly like Duff McKagan, who was a little bit more punk, but they were metal. There was no doubt about it, because when I was a young thrashling with my mullet and my Sepultura t-shirt, I used to think thrash guys were the the tough aspect. You know, jeans and a t-shirt. We don't mess. You know, we don't need to wear high heels and makeup and the rest of it. We just dress like we do on the street and blah blah blah. And then you have people like Manowar with the spikes and we're metal as fuck. What's more metal than getting on stage in Iowa wearing high heels and shocking blonde hair with makeup on and gyrating your hips? And fair play to the actor of Vince Neil. He had that hip shake down, dude. There's you can't get tougher than that. And it reminded me of old stories of when I was like in my 20s and I'd hear Lars say in interviews of how he'd shout over the street to Mötley Crüe saying, "You fucking suck," you know, trying to be thrash and the rest of it. And then he'd run away because Nikki Sixx was much bigger than him, but he'd have high heels on. So, and I used to think that Lars was a man mountain. I didn't realise he was short and weak and all the rest of it. Although he's a bit of an athlete. But yeah, there wasn't that many tough guys in thrash. You know, it was bravado and Krang interviews, you know, right, just buffing the truth a little bit. There were some badasses. Violence were a thrash band that you wouldn't mess with. Chuck Billy, he would crack some skulls. But by and large, you know, a lot of these bands were nerdy, skinny. And you have people like Vince Neil, who was a bit of a badass, and he was like threatening to beat up Axl and all this type of shit. So he walked the walk. And like I say, there was nothing more metal than Mötley Crüe. So I have some advice for future filmmakers. To get these movies made, they have to appeal to the masses. So you had all the big stories in that. You should think about the DVD releases where you can put in the stuff for fans. So put the general release out in the movies or on Netflix, you know, major release. Put that out. And then for a DVD, put out a fan version where there's more script, more stories that we don't know about. Even the cringy stuff that they hate to share. I think that would be good. I think there should be two, when it comes to these type of movies in the future. Get a special edition, uncut version for DVD so fans can buy it and still support the band more because they all want to. And one thing about Nikki Sixx, the biggest queue when I go to NAMM, it's a musical expo that's in Anaheim, and I usually go every year. I didn't go this year, but I've been like for the past 8 years. The biggest line I've ever seen to meet anyone was for this band called 6 a.m. And this thing was wrapping around the building. I couldn't believe it. I was like, who the hell is 6 a.m.? And it was Nikki Sixx's side band. These guys, you have no idea how big Mötley Crüe is. I claim metal is dead. If they knew what the scene was like back in the day, you wouldn't question me on saying it's obviously not, it's still there. Metal is still there. It's relatively compared to what it was back in the day. But they were a huge impact, man. And a little few things I would have liked to have seen. They only just about touched on grunge killing the scene. They hardly mentioned Guns N' Roses. I saw Slash on a couch here and there, and there wasn't that much of the Guns N' Roses rivalry. I would like to see a bit more of that. But like I say, it was a decent movie. I enjoyed it. A solid 6.5 out of 10, and it's something I probably will watch again. And it was fun. And the scene was fun, so it was a fun movie. Is it a movie for hardcore fans? No, it's not. But it's a movie that, you know, scratched the surface. It's the surface of the scene back in the day. And it was a lot of fun. And it kind of makes me miss the old days of metal because I was there. And what can you say? Oh, well. But the most important thing is Ozzy is king. And they admitted that in the movie. If you want to see this yourself, go check it out on Netflix. Get drunk, have some fun, watch some boobs. And that's what it's all about. So yeah, and check out, coming soon on the channel is me recreating Mick Mars' tone. That's why I have a pile of old plexis behind me, which are modded with master mod. Oh, nope, you'll have to tune in to see how he got that sound. And this is a pretty technical one because they knew what was up and he knew what was up. So let's raise a glass to Mick Mars. I hope he's good. And I'm not sure if he was as angry as he was in the movie in real life because he seems to be like not that surly. Maybe he was, so who knows. So yeah, please subscribe. And if you have any movie suggestions for me, let me know. And if you liked the tone in the beginning, that was my own pickup. can buy that at circleoftone.com for $70. And also, thanks to my patrons of Tone, the last patron that signed up. If you want to support the channel, because I make no money from YouTube, it really keeps my speakers flapping. And thanks to Jeremy, my new Patreon of Tone. And if you want to become a patron of the channel, check out the description below. All right, chaps, I'll see you next time. Subscribe, hit like if you want to do it, or whatevs. Circle of Tone.